There is this paradox in content creation that nobody talks about. You need to care deeply about your work, pour your soul into it, but also you kind of need to not care at all and detach yourself from the validation, the outcomes, and whatever that comes with putting yourself in front of a camera. I know that sounds insane, but this concept alone has solved most of my clients' content creation issues almost entirely alone. I'm very excited to share this with you. Today, I'm breaking down detachment. And since I got to work with many incredible channels, this has been one of the most core concepts I got to experience from incredibly successful content creators. And this has been a consistent trend I have seen. And inversely, I have observed the lack of this in every single struggling channel I have seen. And you can say, oh, it's like survivorship bias. Of course, when a channel becomes successful, they get detached from the outcome. They're in abundance, right? And when the other channel isn't successful, they don't. But that is not the case at all. I have seen these channels in the come up. I have these channels in the startup phase. I have seen these channels in monetary issues, but this concept of detachment was an everlasting constant. So let me dive deeper into this concept. Here's the interesting balance in life, especially with content. You really have to care about something. You have to put effort, intentionality, value, and honesty, your soul into it. But you also have to ship it, right? As Steve Jobs say, like good artists ship. You cannot swim in the sea of perfectionism, and that always becomes an excuse for procrastination. And parallel concept to this is you have to detach from the content you create. Let me make a good case for it. When you care too much, right? When you aren't properly detached, when you feel very attached to the stuff you're creating, it constrains you. It stops you from being able to fully express yourself, fully share your gifts, and fully provide value for your viewers and or potential prospects. It creates friction. You can feel it. You can feel it here. That's why we always do multi-hour sessions, because we know as people get going and as people create more and more, there's this act of letting go. You cannot care for 2 hours straight and just do something. At some point you let loose. If you care too much, if you aren't properly detached, you cannot free flow. Ultimately, you cannot maximize your full potential. And here's the thing, right? This concept could just be a multi-hour seminar by itself. But when you are in this detached state of being, you will have access to all of your faculties that will allow you to care a lot and actually execute on those feelings. There is this interesting Zen truth about this, right? But when you aren't properly detached, you will not have access to all of your mental and spiritual faculties. And here's the thing, right? And this is why you need to balance this. If you don't care at all, most things you will ship will be garbage. There is no intentionality, there is no magic behind it, there is no soul, and the person will see, oh, this is just content, right? This is not this interesting video. This doesn't have value behind it. So you need intention and freedom. And you need to balance things at the same time. And most of the clients I work with usually lack one of each. I've almost never seen a client lack both. And usually people care too much. So they have too much intention. They want wanting to do too much at once. This is like magic. It's like clockwork. Whenever you implement this concept of detachment into the content creation process as a mentality, as a constant primer, almost always all of the content becomes so much better. Their vibe shifts, the energy shifts, they can share more easily. And honestly, a video is an interesting format because it's mostly about energy transference more than informational exchanges, right? I feel the written form is a lot better to just have all of your ideas in one concise form. I feel video is a lot more about the energy transference and the visual engagement. The video is great. That's why editing becomes a big deal. That's why scripting becomes a big deal. But for your own performance in the videos and the channels lifelong growth and health, detachment becomes always a critical piece many business owners lack. And here's the thing. This is a lifelong concept. This is one of these universal truths that Yamato Musashi talks about, right? If you know the very broadly, you will see it everywhere. This concept, if you are at all successful in anything in life, you will understand this and see this concept. And when I contextualize it in your content creation process, it will fit. The puzzle piece will fit. But let me make a good case for it. Think about you're interested in someone, you're talking to them, you really like them, maybe a little too much. You really want it to work. You'll be nervous. You can't probably string 2 sentences together. You'll most likely not be your optimal self when you're in your elements. And I feel we have all felt like that, where we are so much better than we present ourselves to be at a certain situation. Whether again, you're interested in someone, it could be a very important job interview, it could be any high leverage negotiation. If you feel constrained, if you aren't properly detached, you will feel your faculties decrease. But imagine that first scenario. You really care, you really like someone, you're really interested in someone, but you also are fine if things don't work out and you have lived so far. You probably have other opportunities. You don't really need this person. You know, you would really love to meet them, but if it doesn't work out, you're fine. So that is like kind of like the optimal place to be, where you care, it's real, you put your soul into it, you put your best foot forward, but there is no constraint in your actions, in your energy, in your faculties, and we want that sweet spot to be your content at all times. And again, this principle tracks with all religions and most daily activities. You know, in Christianity, in the Bible, Jesus says, let tomorrow worry about tomorrow's problems. In Buddhism, the principle of non-attachment is probably like the most crucial tenet of Buddhism and most Eastern philosophies. Basically, Buddhism teaches you attachment is most like the root of all evil and all issues and your connection to ego and worldly things. And it's basically like almost everything in Buddhism leads to non-attachment and like the distraction of ego. So this is like one of the most core tenets of Buddhism, right? In sports, there is something called the flow state. And this is not, of course, just constrained to sports, but it has like a very big element there where like if you care too much, if you're thinking too much, if the shot won't go in, but like when you just get into that like flow where you don't care and just things just start happening, like you still are attacking, right? You're in attack mode. You want to win. You want to make it happen, but like you're in this like also free flow zone where you're detached. Like you're like intentional but detached. So that is like the optimal state, guys. I want this for you. And of course, the arts, Stephen Pressfield has an incredible book called The War of Art, where the whole thing is just detaching from the outcome. So just like calling on the muse and letting the muse work through you instead of you forcing a situation to a certain result. And again, I can give you many more examples to this. Like in Islam, there's like the whole concept of fate where like you just let go of certain outcomes to God and he will take care of it. This is actually like a very strong concept in Islam. So like, again, this is like a core tenet throughout most, if not all religions, and just everything in life. You will see this thread everywhere, right? And again, if you watch this video and do not agree with this or do not understand that this is a universal reality, this is not like a tactic or a frame or my opinion, you probably won't be successful in anything in life. And again, there is a great book called The Inner Game of Tennis that like explains this pretty well. When someone is on a roll, like I read this book and I love this example from the book, right? Like when someone is on a roll, having fun, not caring, and I don't want to say not caring because I hope I properly established there is this like seesaw, there's this balance, but detached, I think that's like the better word for like not caring, right? They're crushing it, they're like dominating, right? But here is what the author does to mess them up. He just congratulates them. He's like, man, your backhand has so much power, like you're hitting at full speed, like how could you do this, like, you know? And he tries to put them in their heads, like out of the moment, out of detachment and into attachment. Like he wants them to think about how good they're playing, how good the outcomes are, like how good their actions are gonna lead. And like conventional wisdom, you know, from like dopamine, like winner effect, reward would tell you that, you know, if you reward people on their like attachments, on their successes, you know, like you would have this positive feedback loop. But, you know, in the author's experience, this is kind of like the opposite, where like when people are too attached to the positive outcomes, they want like positive outcomes to happen or to continue, something interesting happens. They start thinking logically, they start to become aware that they're having a good game and they want that to continue. So they get out of the moment. If they're like a pro, if they know what they're doing, they would just dismiss the comment. They're like, oh, thank you. And they would just be locked in and be present, right? But if they engage with the comment and if they get into this zone of outcomes and like forcing something happen and just getting outside of this detachment, instantly, without fail, according to the author, their game suffers. And this is like a trick he uses all the time for people who do not have like a good mental game. And again, everything is a game, guys. This is just like this is a philosophy you install, and this is like a paradigm you execute from. Okay, but just instantly, I love this example, like their game suffers. And I love this example because it goes against conventional wisdom, right? It goes, you're congratulating them to make them worse, right? That's how powerful detachment is, or like how powerful attachment is on the inverse. The best athletes, the best ones, have this incredible balance of caring a lot about the outcomes, the intentionality, right? But properly detaching, properly letting go on like an energetic and spiritual way when it's time to show up and let go and actually perform. You lock into that frequency of like caring a lot, but also detaching. And again, that's like a frequency you find. It's like the old AM/FM radios. You just like, probably you won't be there all the time. But like, as you're doing it, you just like fine tune the frequency. You're like, okay, I care a bit too much. Let me just like ease into it. Let me just like feel more free. Or let's say, and again, this also happens, right? On the inverse, you create content for such a long time, for it's like a very plug and play process, and you're like you don't care that much. There's no soul. You're just basically like filling your like weekly content quota, and you're like, okay, I need more intentionality here. I need more magic. I need more outcomes. I need this content to like have some sparks. So again, this is like a seesaw, this is a balance. Most business owners I work with these days, we usually like implement their content like for the first time, from zero. So their issue is more on detachment, right? Not on intentionality. But I've seen it happen also, especially like established channels that are fairly decent sized. So this video will probably be framed around detachment because that's the kind of person I want it to view the video. But the main concept is actually not detachment itself. It's actually that like sweet spot or of intentionality and detachment. And if you are in one side more than the other, you want to be aware and fine tune your frequency to get like the optimal balance of both sides. So let's get into the business owner problem. As I said, most business owners care too much, especially if like they're a solopreneur or like a CEO of like a small business. If they're not like a manager of like a mega conglomerate, they probably care a little too much. And here's the solution to that, right? This is like a very good takeaway solution from this video. You need volume and separation. Let me explain. Here is what works. You can delegate the optics and performance to someone else. Again, it doesn't need to be like an agency or like a media company. It could just be like an in-house person. It could even be your wife. It's a family business, but you just have someone else be responsible for the outcomes and success of the videos. They can report back to you. You can still be involved in the process, but you want to have that ease of mind that someone qualified, that's actually important. You can actually spiritually let that go because you trust that person to do a good job on that, right? Like ideally for business owners, and again, this is actually what I do. I have like a media marketing company, but I know as I'm recording this, I have an incredible team on the back end. I know my editors will see this footage, will cut out the best parts. If I have like very bad bald spots, I'm pretty sure like they'll figure out like something on post-production. I am 100% sure this video will have excellent color grading. It will have like interesting visual elements. I know like the most interesting parts of this video will be clipped. And I know this video will be framed well, will have an incredible thumbnail that's like avatar aligned, so I can just focus on the stuff I want to talk about without just like being overly involved in like the outcomes that this video should generate. So honestly, like as a person who cares a lot also on all of stuff I do, I found this like the most incredible tool for increased outcomes, increased inputs, increased performance on my end. And every single business owner that has either worked with us or has delegated a big outcome responsibilities to someone else has an incredible success in most of their content creation efforts. And again, can you do that? Kind of finding that zone yourself while also responsible for everything else? Sure, there are a lot of like full-time YouTubers who are pretty good at that. I've worked with like a massive one, but I feel like that's like an elite athlete level skill, but like that zone, being in that zone, having that functionality is kind of your full-time job, not something you do for lead gen at your business. I feel like if you can consistently do that, you should just become a full-time YouTuber. Kind of, not really, but really. Like what you can do is very simple. You just like sit in front of a camera for a couple of hours and you just record raw content. And good ways of doing this is just talking about topics, answering prompts, or if you want to be more intentional about it, just writing scripts, content ideas, angles, outcomes, etc., and just flowing off those, or like reading scripts with a teleprompter or like a laptop in front of you where your editors can cut out like the parts where you're like reading the script. And you just let your backend team or your agency or the media company create the angles, find the most interesting part of your like free flow, package it in a way that would attract who you want to attract, create the titles, the positioning of the videos, the awareness levels, thumbnails, and they also would make you look good. And that is also like a very important part. For example, we use massive media companies' post-production filters, where I probably look a lot more attractive on this video than I look in real life in a non-obvious, non-AI way. Very subtle. I don't want to use like the terms, but we pay a lot of money to these companies to have access to this production software, for this post-production software, so we make everything look good. Again, like color grading, macro touch-ups, where like you touch up certain parts of the video in like a dynamic motion graphics way, just so like the client and the business looks good. So you don't have to do this incredible effort into like set design and like pre-production. Currently, this video is being recorded by like a very, very, very small camera on like a mini desk tripod and a handheld light on my house. I have some like cool lighting and a cool backdrop, but that's pretty much it. That's like, this is like a very plug and play setup. And most business owners think you need like this massive equipment or massive space to have very high quality content, but that is not the case at all. You can review your content if you want, but after a few runs, there's like good message alignment. You will feel it. And you like kind of delegated the caring. And again, this is a common success tip, but it's common because it works. It's not common because it's lame or basic. It's actually like a fundamental truth, but you can also just focus on your inputs. As long as you're aware those inputs are high quality and given consistent inputs will produce good outcomes, right? You just don't focus. I'm not saying just focus on your inputs. If you're not sure those are good inputs will produce good outcomes, but like if you're sure your strategy is tight, just focus on your inputs. Then like you just kind of completely detach on the outputs. Did you answer your 30 prompts? Fantastic, great. Like you're happy. You don't even care what happens, right? Did you do your like postings for today? Fantastic. And I can promise, I have seen like many multi-million subscriber channels, and I cannot tell you how input oriented they are. They look at their analytics as data points and kind of like to review trends, but they have zero attachment to like how any one single video does on like views, comments, etc. Anything outside like interesting data points. And again, your inputs could include things like brand alignment, audience alignment, and value alignment. So things that are within your control, right? But as long as you can focus on things within your control and your inputs, this is like one of the most critical pieces of detachment you can employ and see almost immediate results. And for the point of volume, I have never seen, okay, this is actually super important. I have never seen someone care and detach the same amount on like their 30th prompt answer on like, or the first one, right? The first one, no matter who you are, you will have resistance, friction, a lot of things, right? But volume kills anxiety. Volume kills attachment. You just get into this flow of doing things with volume. So there is like a nice saying, right? If you cannot meditate for 20 minutes, you should do it for 2 hours, right? Because the volume kills that like friction. If you can't do something for 10 minutes, you should do it for like 4 hours. I'm not a big believer in like just like go to the gym and come back. Like just get used to going to the gym. Like, nah, if you can't go to the gym, just spend like 4 hours there. Like you'll probably get very comfortable in a couple of days, and after a week you'll have zero issues. So volume kills anxiety. This is something I will like take to my grave. I will not change my opinion on that. I've seen many times. If you have detachment issues or any sort of like inner game issues, try to introduce a lot of volume into that activity, and you will see dramatic results very quickly. And this is kind of stupid. People like to do this like small stepping thing. Oh, I don't have time, blah blah blah, and like they do like an hour like a week, and all the hour is like very unproductive. And like because they do it weekly, they just have like a lot of like friction, and like every week sucks, and they probably get comfortable in like 3-4 months. But like the other person is like, okay, like I just want to break this friction, right? And they do like more volume initially. Like let's say they like batch like a month in a week, and they do like a 3-4 hour week, and they batch the next month, next week. You will see that like next week's content become incredible, like so much better. They're detached, they're free flowing. And this is like a key concept, guys. Again, listen to me. Delegation, right? And the volume are critical tools you have for beating detachment, for critical tools you have for beating attachment and introducing detachment into your content creation process. And another thing that feels like a no-brainer, but I feel like almost nobody does it, and when I say it, it will make sense. Detachment itself helps with detaching. So what do I mean by that, right? Like detachment is like an activity, right? So don't look at your views, don't look at your content, just like take a space back. Like you can get like KPIs or have someone like look at it for you. And again, I'm not saying this as like a rule. If you can create that spiritual and like emotional space between you, of course, like look at your analytics and stuff. But if you can't, detaching helps with detachment, right? Just don't look at it. Create some separation between you and the results. So I found that works really well as well. And I found a significant part of people who attach too much also do a lot of attaching activities, like obsessing over the data, over checking their analytics, just creating rationalizations and meanings on like things that have zero meanings. We're like, oh, this video had like 20 more views. Like, why does the algorithm like this? It doesn't. It's just random. Just stop looking at the numbers, right? So detachment helps with detaching. Do not obsess over your content. I have worked with multiple massive channels, and the ones that grow explosively, they all have this detachment from content. And again, I'm not saying not caring, I'm saying detachment. I'm using my words carefully, right? They care a lot, but they're also detached. I'm like, I hope this makes sense. So this may sound counterintuitive, but please trust me, execute it, give it a couple of weeks, you will see like the incredible improvement in your content almost immediately. Care deeply, but also let go of the outcome. Focus on your inputs, delegate the rest on a strategy and on people you trust. And if you found this at all valuable, you can hit subscribe. I try to record fairly valuable and fairly impactful content. And I'll be breaking down a content system that works even if you're overthinking and obsessing about everything. And I feel like you don't want to miss that video, but even if you are like overthinking and obsessing about everything, I feel you should still introduce attachment immediately, just so the performance you have in those videos will be significantly better. This is Ozzy from BDM, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.